I thought about traditional sales approaches. And when I started NAWSP, my hypothesis, if you will, was in a world where traditional sales approaches were created by men for men at a time when men made up the entire sales force. And let me pause there and say that there's nothing wrong with traditional sales approaches. I got to the top 1%, and so did a lot of my female colleagues. But I wanted to know, how much faster could women in sales reach the top 1% if we had sales approaches that address the unique challenges we face while amplifying our innate strengths? So that's how NAWSP got started. Inclusive selling takes that a step further. If we're going to diversify the sales industry, we've also got to not just look at who's selling, but the approach that we're using to reach our buyers. And I'll give you an example. I walked into a store one day and I heard someone say, "What's up, girl?" And I turned around because I thought the young lady was speaking to someone behind me. And she laughed and she said, "No, I'm talking to you." And it hit me the wrong way. When someone says to me, being a Gen Xer, "What's up, girl?" there's a level of familiarity that's assumed. My own friends don't say to me, "What's up, girl?" So I took a look at the intersection between intentionality and intent and impact. And I said, number one, this young lady didn't mean to offend me. Number two, no one taught her the appropriate way to address someone who looks like me. If you ask the majority of Black women in my circle, to say "What's up, girl?" is offensive as heck because of the history of being called girl. It's almost like calling a Black man "What's up, boy?" Where there will be some who differ, to paint a broad brush, to stroke everything with a broad brush and assume everyone walking into your store likes to be called or approached with "What's up, girl?" is a mistake, and it's a huge messed up. So I started thinking about the traditional sales approaches and the scripting that we get as sales leaders, and we give that to our AEs. And I thought there's no differentiation, and there's nothing that says adopt your sales approach based upon the diversity of your buyer. So that's how inclusive selling got started. Long answer, but that's how it got started. It opens the door for growth in this way. When you create an inclusive selling experience for your buyer, that know, like, and trust factor skyrockets. There's nothing worse than me coming to you, Alice, assuming things about you based upon how you look. And when I do that as a seller, I can offend, I can unnerve, and even though you may buy from me, you won't buy again. So by treating our prospects, our buyers, as individuals, getting to know them, asking questions without assumption, and checking our bias at the door, we create that inclusive buying experience. The first one I can say is you've got to diversify your sales force. If you want to attract a diverse buying market, you've got to make sure that your sales representatives represent the buyer that you're going after. Because there are customers who are going to say, "I'm not going to buy from you because no one looks like me at your company." So that's the first thing. The second thing would be to use technology to your advantage. There are companies out there like Reggie AI that will analyze your marketing messages, your email messaging, to find out whether or not they contain bias, microaggressions, etc. So there are certain things that are said that I didn't even know about that can come across as racist, sexist, and biased. You can go overboard too, because there are going to be some that say, where do we draw the line? Where is it that we stop trying to include everyone, trying to change our verbiage so that we stop offending people? My question is, why would you stop? And why wouldn't you want to not offend people? If there's something you can do to make it your language more inclusive, then why not? What bothers you so much about trying to be inclusive? In 2016, I was contemplating my next move, and I had a long career of selling and getting to the top 1%. And I started to look at legacy. What is it that I want the world to know and do and be as a result of my being on this earth? So I was on Facebook one day. Facebook has all these wonderful memes of philosophy, and one said, the true measure of whether or not you're a success in life isn't how well you do. It's actually how many others you help do well. And I thought about, what is it that I can do to help other women in sales reach the top 1% with my knowledge, skills, and abilities? So I did some soul searching, and I knew that I wanted to be an advocate for those who didn't feel confident, didn't feel comfortable, and who didn't really have a voice. I think we hit on one: diversify your team, because diversity of demographic leads to diversity of thought. And when you have a diverse team, they bring in different perspectives. Number two, ask your customers that don't look like you if they feel celebrated by you. And that's a hard question to ask, because number one, if all of your customers look like you, then you don't have anybody to ask and from the diversity perspective or through that diverse lens. So take a look at your customers and say, are all of our customers the same? And then ask the hard questions. Why not? Why are all of our customers one race, one gender? And then do something about it. Ask yourself the hard questions. If you want to diversify your approach, if you want to grow and be a company that is seen as a promoter of diversity, ask your team, ask your customers, and then ask yourself, what's holding us back? Take a look at those companies whom you idealize and say, you know what, they have what we want. And then emulate. Success leaves clues. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Find out their best practices, do what they do, and you'll start to see some things change. You have to be willing to look inside and say, you know what, something's not quite right. You have to identify your own biases and say, you know what, everyone has a bias. My 9-month-old Rottweiler has bias. He loves me more than he loves his daddy, and that's okay. But if we fail to look at the biases that we have inherently, we'll never get anywhere. I wouldn't have built my business by myself in the early days. I would have partnered with people, not coaches, but partnered with people who would say, Cynthia, that's a great idea, and can we look at it differently? Success isn't created in a vacuum. And I thought that I was a one-woman show. I was going to do it all myself. I wasted a lot of time, made a bunch of errors, so many errors. I could write a book on what not to do. I could have saved myself all of that if I had said and been willing to humble myself and say, you know what, I can't build this empire by myself. Who is it that I can have help me, who knows more than me? That's what I would have done differently. If I had one thing to invest in, I would say it would be systems. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, says you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. As a small business owner, you wear a different hat depending on the time of day. I can be an accountant, small business advisor, social media manager, toilet paper replacer, you name it, I am she. It's exhausting. And if you're not careful as a leader of a small to mid-sized business, you will work in your business more than you work on your business. As a leader, if you work in your business doing those day-to-day activities, you can't possibly have the energy to think about how are we going to grow? How are we going to scale? Because you're doing every single thing. So when you have systems that automate processes, you're able to have the energy to think about how we can grow. So that would be the biggest investment. If you don't know how to do systems, hire someone who can look at your process flow and automate it for you. Once we started doing that, I had time to go fishing with my husband. Once we started to automate lead flow and things like that, I started getting mailbox money. And mailbox money is where you don't have to trade hours for dollars. Mailbox money is where you wake up in the morning and you see Stripe notifications. So-and-so bought this, so-and-so bought that. That's how you can have 7 different streams of income so that you can live the life of your dreams with the freedom and flexibility that being an entrepreneur gives you.